Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program with myself, Martin Blackham, and with my wife, Nathalie Blackham. We are so glad to be in your company. We're the program that looks at the news from Israel, and we also look behind the news from Israel and what's happening for the people in Israel. We also look at the Hebrew language and the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And Natalie's going to be talking a bit about the Hebrew alphabet later in the program. Well, what's happening in the news, Martin? Well, there's a ceasefire officially with the war in Iran, and which covers all of the different theatres, which is, of course, Iran, Gaza, Lebanon, etc., and the Houthis. But we have a situation where there is still fighting going on, Nathalie, even though there's a ceasefire. So how can there be a ceasefire and fighting going on? Good question. I don't know the answer to that, but that's what's happening. Now, one of the problems has been the border of the north of Israel. Gaza has been quiet in the sense of affecting the southern border, but the northern border has been a problem, and has been an extremely dangerous area because of the drones, the unmanned aircraft that are flown by the Hezbollah terror group across the border and indeed into the IDF camps. Now, the Jerusalem Post has reported that Hezbollah FPV drones are using night vision for strikes on IDF soldiers. Very dangerous because difficult to see these drones during the day, never mind during the night.
So when you say FPV, what does it mean?
It might be later in the story. I don't know.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, because I was.
First person vision, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, he's like they're doing it themselves.
Yeah, it's usually one person who can fly the drone rather than being launched from an airstrip. It's can be launched from anywhere, which makes it extremely dangerous because it can go behind a hedge and then suddenly a drone comes from the other side. Now,
and some soldiers have been hurt.
Right. Hezbollah have used an FPV drone equipped with night vision or thermal technology. Thermal technology can see in the dark in a strike that's wounded 2 Israeli soldiers, Nathalie says. Calm News reported. Hezbollah is using night vision technology to carry out drone strikes, which is making it very dangerous at night time for Israel's soldiers on the northern border. The terror group has been using first-person view, is the exact FPV explanation, drones to carry out strikes in southern Lebanon. And they have shown the terror group a strike on 2 soldiers who were seriously wounded by the attack. Hezbollah have carried out previous drone strikes, but not like this, using such technology, and the Israeli military have struggled to defend against such drone attacks. These are small drones, which, as we've said, are being handled by one person. The attacks have killed soldiers, by the way, the drone attacks. I think at least 6 soldiers, and wounded senior officers, including the 401 1st Armoured Brigade commander, a colonel-ranked officer. Meanwhile, the Times of Israel reports that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced in the last few days that Israel is intensifying operations in Lebanon by taking strategic positions and reinforcing the security buffer zone as the IDF push forward the lines it held as it seeks to counter the recent surge of drone attacks. They're pushing further into Lebanon. The announcement, which the Premier made during a full security cabinet meeting, came as the Israel Defense Forces confirmed that it had expanded ground operations beyond the designated security zone in parts of southern Lebanon in recent days. The security zone basically is a buffer zone. There's always been a buffer zone in Lebanon since the different wars, and previously the United Nations troops have been in the buffer zone to maintain the ceasefire, the peace. However, the reality is that the United Nations troops have not done very much and in one way you can't really blame them because they don't really want to come face to face with terrorists. So they've just stayed in their bases or done patrols but haven't really been very effective. It's also come as the Israeli Air Force has also escalated its attacks against Hezbollah, carrying out over 100 strikes in the Bekaa Valley in eastern Lebanon and in the country's south. So it is heating up in Lebanon. And also, by the way, in Gaza, there have been attacks against Hamas militants. Those have been carried out. So we need to keep an eye on Gaza as well, Nathalie. Now, Israel's biggest data center, depending on how you pronounce it, is to be built in Ashdod. Ashdod is the second port, but it is a major port for Israel, and it's on the coast of the Mediterranean. Critics, though, warn about the insatiable energy and water demands of housing massive data centers, which threaten local resources, strain power grids, and contribute to environmental degradation. All the computers need these data centers. They are extremely important. And of course, we've talked on the program before about the government data system, the Nimbus computer system, which is running the government ministries. And indeed, if you go online and you go into the government data systems, in fact, if you're a tourist, for example, and you go onto the website or you make a reservation, I think you have to do a form now, and that's part of Nimbus. Now, the data centers develop a server farm owned by Man U Life Investment and the Papu Chado family, together with the Israel infrastructure, will build a 130 megawatt data center in Ashdod for daily energy with an investment of $1.5 billion. This is a very big project. It's the biggest, as I said, data center in the whole of Israel. It's going to, use massive amount of servers. Those are the computer servers that work inside the data center, cooling equipment and electricity. And it's going to be enlarged once it's up and running to 200 megawatts. Critics, though, warn that large-scale data farms or data centers pose severe risks to the environment, public health and local economies. Some of you may be aware of the problems with the one in Georgia, where there's been a lot of criticism of the data center there. First of all, they use a massive amount of water, and they have to have fresh water. Why they have to have fresh water and not just normal any old water, seawater, for example? Why they have to have fresh water, I don't know, but they require millions of gallons of water, draining local reservoirs and causing drinking water depletion. I think in Georgia they reported that the water pressure had dropped, and the lady who was doing a report in Georgia about the data center there,
Georgia, America.
In America,
yeah.
Not Georgia in Europe, or on the border of Europe. She reported that the pressure had gone down to nearly nothing, and they use a massive amount of electricity. They require reliable 24/7 power, and they become heat islands. Research indicates that the heat exhausted by massive computational cooling processes can raise the local land temperature. Oh, it's already quite hot in Ashdod, so that would be even worse, that it's getting even hotter. It causes air pollution. To prevent downtime, data centers rely on dozens of diesel backup generators. These give off high levels of harmful fuel. It also causes respiratory illnesses. The pollution from data centers has been reported in California to be causing problems for asthma and placing a massive burden of health problems on the nearby communities. Noise and light pollution, 24/7 exterior lighting they have to have. Construction and humming cooling fans disrupt natural sleep rhythms for those living close by. It's also a drain, as I say, on the local electricity. So that's something that's happening in Ashdod. And I've got to tell you, folks, I don't think there's any way to come against these data centers. They're part of the last days. They're part of what's happening with all the computers and all the movement that's going on in the world with all the control, surveillance and everything that needs computers. Now, talking about computers, high tech in Israel has been suffering. I've mentioned this on the program before, but the workforce, sadly, or I don't know if some people think it's good, but I think it's bad because Israel depends on the high tech for its work, is shrinking after years of growth. Dozens of Meta, formerly Facebook employees in Israel, have received dismissal notices. Meta, that's Facebook, is to lay off 100 employees. And Israeli AI company A121 is cutting more than 60% of its workforce. Zoom Info is to shut its Israel R&D center. Dozens of Meta employees have sadly begun to receive dismissal notices as the US giant tech company embarks on a wave of layoffs to trim 10% of its global workforce, all because of AI. As part of the global layoffs, Meta is slated to fire about 100 employees in Israel, 10%. Most of that will be in its development center in Tel Aviv. The fact is, though, that Israeli high-tech employment faces a slowdown after a decade of continuous growth. Really, it's been massive, the growth of high-tech in Israel, and a leader in the world. But sadly, many high-tech engineers and executives have gone abroad because of the war and other issues and have left Israel. The worrying trend continues to have far-reaching ramifications for the growth of Israel's war-battered economy and the transformation of the future employment market. Whilst 100 people might not sound very much, after it occurs, after many other redundancies, it becomes more and more difficult for them to find employment in the country. Israel is quite a small country.
Yes, only 10 million inhabitants.
And it's more and more difficult for them to gain employment in Israel. Well, one of the things that we've talked about on the program, and one of the things that's happening in the world, is anti-Semitism. In Belgium, and we mentioned Belgium before, it's continuing to grow. And Belgium has refused to renew, Nathalie, the passport of an Israeli citizen who lives over the Green Line. Green Line might not sound very serious, but obviously it is for the Belgian authorities.
And it means that people who are living in Judea or Samaria.
Right. Now,
Judea is south of Jerusalem. Samaria is in the north of Jerusalem.
Now
by the way, territories were won during the war of the 6-Day War, because it hasn't been ratified, but they win all these territories, but they are still fighting over them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the sense of internationally.
Yes,
because,
internationally.
I think they're called legally disputed territories.
Yes.
That the international community might not recognize the Israeli communities in the disputed territories,
yes.
But Israel does.
Yes, but you're right. But we need to know also biblically is where the mountain of Jerusalem is. Sorry, the mountain of Israel.
Right.
So it's all the places like Shrem, Bethel, Jerusalem. Not Jerusalem. Sorry, Hebron. Is very important places where God spoke to His people.
Right. So we're talking about places in Israel on the usually on the borders of the existing Israel, and areas that have been retaken. But long term, the Jewish people have always been in this area. They've always been Jewish people, and as we know, God gave the land of Israel to the Jewish people. End of story. So we don't need any of the nonsense of the international community trying to make up stories. We know that people have come to live there. A lot of Arab people came to live there because of employment. They were moved there by the Turkish Ottoman Empire, moved a lot of people inside of Israel and moved a lot of people from Israel out of it. And people have been moved all around from different countries, particularly from the Arab countries, for work purposes. So there have been Arab communities in the land for many years, but they're not the original occupants. That's what you need to know. Now, Israel says measures taken against an Israeli citizen who lives across the Green Line in Pisgat Zev are disgraceful. Completely unreasonable decision follows the Belgian court's prosecution of 2 Jewish mohels for carrying out circumcisions. There have been problems in Belgium with anti-Semitism and indeed with the prosecution of the 2 Jewish men who are doing the Jewish circumcision. So this is not a new thing, but we will keep you updated about the growth of anti-Semitism and things that are happening across the world. Now, Nathalie, you...
And when you say Pisgat Zev, it's just north of Jerusalem. I mean, it's really, it's almost touching. It could be like, it's the suburb of Jerusalem. A lot of people are living over there. And it's been built already a long time ago. I think it was just after the 6-day war that they started to really go back over there. And it's huge. It's a huge place.
Now, Nathalie brings us the biblical background to what's happening in these last days, and as we look forward to the return of Messiah. And you've got some interesting things for us today from the Hebrew alphabet, I believe.
Yes, we are now on the 14th letter, which is Nun. And you know, and I spoke already a few times, you can go back to look at the program, but you know that the Hebrew letters is the building block of creation. God has used the Hebrew language for creating the world, and also it was the language right at the beginning. When you read Genesis 1 to Genesis chapter 1 to Genesis chapter 11 is all in Hebrew, and then there was the Tower of Babel, and like God gave different languages. Why? Because they were trying to do something against God, and they say, hey, there is limits, and you are speaking the same language. Now when you are in unity, nothing is impossible. Is what is written, okay? Is what God is saying. When we're in unity, nothing is impossible. So he gave different languages, but Shem, the son of Noah, kept the Hebrew language, and so the Jewish people kept the Hebrew language. And when God gave the Torah, which was at the time of Shavuot, Pentecost, everything was written in Hebrew. It wasn't in other languages, it was in Hebrew. And so every letter is very important and has an energy and a power in itself, and is be able to create. By the way, scientists are using, when they use Hebrew, they can see with a special machine that there is power in the letters. So it's very, very interesting. So today we are looking at the letter Nun, okay? This is this letter, which is a kind of a N for us, Nun. And there is two shapes. This one that I show you is at the beginning of the word, and this one is Nun Sofit, is called, and is at the end of a word. And very interesting, we have 5 letters who have a Sofit, which is like a final letter who is transformed, and usually they are longer, and like you see, this one is not banned, and is speaking also about the kingdom of God when he will come on earth. Nothing will be banned anymore. Everything will be able to be straight and stand the right way, no crooked, no damage, and all of that. By the way, you know, I was reading the Psalm 105. Was it 4? No, it was 105, and it's speaking about the redemption of the Hebrew when they are in Egypt. And it's written there that when they left, well, when you know the story, there were a lot of crippled people, there were a lot of handicap because of the work that they were doing as slaves. And we can maybe speak about that another time. And so a lot of them were like crippled or had an arm cut or a leg. But when they left for Mitzrayim, when they left Egypt, God healed them all. So this is amazing to know. You can read it in Psalm 105. And so this will be like the final redemption will be the same. Nothing will be crooked, nothing will be broken, and everything will stand straight in front of God, which is just beautiful. Okay? So the numerical order also is 50, because we saw like at the beginning you go to 10 and then you jump from 10, 20, 30, 40, and noon is 50, which is very interesting because noon is like 50 is fullness of life, is the jubilee again. So jubilee is when the slave was slave are not slave anymore, is freedom, which will be like the same also for redemption. So this is beautiful to know that, and to know also that when we're 50 we really start to have more wisdom and you know, because you acquire it slowly, and you acquire it by learning, but by also just life. Older people have most of the time more sense than young people who are just new and start to know, you know, what is life about. So this is very interesting. Now the thing also, noon is like neshama, and neshama is our soul. Very important, interesting. And you know, when Eliezer ben Yehuda died, he was working on that name, and neshama is your soul. And when you die, when your body dies, your neshama goes with God. And so it was quite amazing that he was just on this letter when he died. He was only 62. And Ner Neshama, there is also a beautiful passage in the Bible. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's like our Neshama is also a light, like Ner, like a candle. And like our Neshama is always flickering, you say? So it's like, it's never stop, it always move. And when you can see every day is different, and you can learn always. And this is something also is beautiful to know. And yes, and another thing also, our neshama is that, you know, neshama, so is that the breath. Sorry, neshama is our soul, but neshima, so it's just one letter different, is breath. And so when God blew in the nostril of Adam, he was blowing neshima, he was breathing neshama, giving a soul to Adam. This is just beautiful. And so we know that we're not just a body, but we are also a soul. And so when our body dies, our soul is going with God when we want to be with him. Now, another thing also that I wanted to tell you, which is also beautiful, again with the letter Nun, is like El Melech Ne'eman. Means El is God, Melech is the king, Ne'eman faithful. He is the faithful one all the time. So we know that God, even if we don't understand everything that he's doing in our life, he is faithful with all of us. He hears every word of what we're saying, every prayer that we're saying, every thought that we're thinking, not even speaking, but thinking. He knows all of that. He knows our desire. He knows what we love. He knows us, I would say, even more than we know each other. And one last thing, which is beautiful, they have a prayer where they use all the alphabet, all the letters, and they say Melech, Tov, and Metiv, etc., etc. And there is one, is a Melech Somer Noflim. He's the one who supports the fallen. And so when we fail, he's always there to help us to get up again. Whatever it is, he's always there to want to help us. And I think this is just beautiful.
Now, if you would like to email us and tell us where you're watching, we have a new email, Nathalie. We have Israel First TV program, the American spelling of program, at proton.me, Israel First TV program at proton.me, and you can email us and tell us where you're watching, wherever in the world. If you're interested in the news from Israel, that is very important to you, or you are interested in the Hebrew language. And by the way, talking about the Hebrew language, Nathalie has done a book, The Beauty of the Hebrew Language. There's details on the website how you can get a copy, and you can even get a digital copy from Amazon. That's also the link for that is also on the website. And thank you to our friends and partners who are making the program possible. It wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your faithfulness. So thank you for that. If you are not supporting us, please do consider that. If the program is important to you and you're enjoying the news from Israel, you're enjoying to hear the Hebrew language, then please do consider financially supporting us. It does make a massive difference, and all the details are at www.israelfirst.org on the donate page, Nathalie. And indeed, you can even sign up for our weekly newsletter and our daily news from Israel. Well, it's been great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. And don't forget, we're the program that looks at the land, the people, and the language.